I think the main thing that parents need to know is just how to effectively help their child set up a routine at home and help them to maintain that. So yes, it's really helpful if they know some of the music lingo or can help decode the music. But a lot of times that's not the case for parents. They don't have a musical background. So really, I just try to instill in my parents, like the main thing you can do is provide the structure and the discipline for your child to help them create that routine.
Hey there, I'm Rachel Ehring, and you're listening to the Top Music Piano Podcast. Get inspired as we discuss creative resources, trends in piano pedagogy, ways to grow your income and streamline your studio, and new ways to engage your students each week. If you are a teacher who wants to go beyond the method books to create an innovative studio that fosters lifelong music makers, you've come to the right place. Hello, piano teachers. I hope that you are doing well. If you are here in the US where I am, we are getting close to the end of summer, but I know some of you are down in the Southern Hemisphere where it is winter currently. But either way, I think you're going to be able to relate to my guest today as we talk about practicing and how to include parents in the conversation about practicing and how important that is. Here's a little bit about Holly. Holly Hornyan is a passionate piano educator based in Phoenix, Arizona, with over 16 years of teaching experience. After earning her Master of Arts in Teaching Music from the University of Southern California, Holly began her career in K-8 general music and choir before transitioning to what she loves most, teaching beginning students to play piano. She's also a graduate of the Royal Conservatory of Music's Teaching Elementary Piano course and has been featured on the Music Studio Startup and the Dynamic Piano Teaching podcasts. Holly is known for her practical, parent-friendly approach to music education, helping young students thrive by equipping families with tools for effective, low-stress home practice. She believes that every child is musical and is committed to making piano learning fun, accessible, and confidence-building. Here's my chat with Holly. Hi, Holly. Welcome to the show. Could you start by introducing yourself to our listeners?
Hi, thanks for having me. My name's Holly Hornyan, and I teach in Phoenix, Arizona at my studio, Clever Keys Music Lessons. I'm going to be entering my 17th year of teaching, and I currently work with about 30 students, and we do group and private lessons. And my main focus is building a foundation for beginning students. So most of my kids are around elementary school.
Oh, okay. And then what happens when they get past that? Do you tend to pass them on to another teacher?
I will keep them going as long as they want to stay going. But I feel like the clientele that I service right now, they're usually stick around for like 3 to 5 years is like my typical lifespan of student.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. We have way more beginners where I'm working as well. So today we're going to talk about practicing because the age-old question is, how do we get students to practice? Every teacher wants to crack the code. So what are your thoughts on this and where do we start?
Yeah, that really is the million-dollar question, I feel like. How do we get them to practice? So I really feel like the first thing you need to do as a teacher is just to help them build practice into their daily routine. So the first step is just getting it to be something that they do on a daily basis and set up that habit. So I want you to talk with them about setting up a dedicated practice space, talking to the parents about making sure they have all the materials, and then just working with the families and really talking with them to see what their week looks like and then realistically where it can fit in. Because I feel like a lot of times we have unrealistic expectations about what can get done in a day or where we can fit something in. So just having that conversation about what will this look like in our life in a realistic way.
Yeah. And I think it does have to be a family conversation, right? Because if we're just telling the students in lessons, okay, go home and practice, that doesn't get us very far. I would love for you to talk a little bit more about the practice space and what you recommend for your students for a practice space. Is it more than just, oh, I have a piano at home?
Yeah, I feel like it's important to consider where the piano is located in the house, because you want it to be in a place where they see it. So they have the visual cue, like, oh, I need to practice. But you don't want it like next to the TV. So then they can't practice because their sibling is watching a TV show. And then that causes frustration. Or if it's too chaotic and they can't focus. So ideally, I feel like it should be somewhere that's visible, but quiet, calm, where they can go and focus and really get down to business.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And being intentional about where it's located, right?
Yeah.
So I know that one of your goals is to educate parents about how to help their child practice because, like I mentioned, it has to be a family situation going on. So why did you decide to go in this direction of educating parents as the thing that you wanted to focus on?
So before I taught private piano, I actually worked as a general music teacher in a school. And one of the school's big initiatives was parent support and just getting parents involved in their students' education. So they found that it really made a big impact on how well the students performed academically. But then when I transitioned into private lessons, I noticed that that wasn't really something that was ever considered because I feel like we think of the student-teacher relationship a lot more and don't really consider the parent as a pivotal part of that. But really, we're just seeing kids mostly, especially beginners, for 30 minutes a week. And really, that's not enough time to make significant progress. So having the parent as a support in all that time in between is really very valuable. So I really wanted to tap into that with my students.
Yeah. So, Holly, I need you to help me out here because the conservatory where I'm the director, there's parents that we never see because we bring kids over from their classrooms for music lessons during the daytime, or we'll bring them over from aftercare after school. And sometimes my teachers never see the parents. Do you have some advice of how we can establish some good communication and get this rolling with the parents that we might not see every week, which I think typically most teachers interact with the parents each week?
That definitely is a challenging situation. I would say like communicating via practice notes is really helpful with parents, but they don't always read that. So if there is some kind of form of contact that you can establish with them, maybe via email or text, just to check in, I think that's helpful. Or potentially even offering a time where parents are invited in so they can be a part of the process and feel invested in that too. But I agree, that's a really hard situation where you're not even seeing the families.
Yeah. I'm going to try this semester to do a big meeting with all the families, and probably I'll separate. I haven't planned it really, but probably separating the parents and the kids. So the kids are doing an activity and then I can talk with the parents about some of these ideas. So tell me some of the ideas I should communicate to the parents. What do parents need to know about good practice habits?
I think the main thing that parents need to know is just how to effectively help their child set up a routine at home and help them to maintain that. So yes, it's really helpful if they know some of the music lingo or can help decode the music, but a lot of times that's not the case for parents. They don't have a musical background. So really, I just try to instill in my parents, like the main thing you can do is provide the structure and the discipline for your child to help them create that routine. And then also for them to know that the door is open between me and them. So if their kid has a question on their assignment and the parent isn't capable of answering that, it's perfectly fine to just shoot me a text or an email and ask, because I'd rather them do that than wait an entire week or practice it wrong the whole week, which is even worse because then it's stuck like that forever. So I just want to make sure they know, like, hey, here's how you can set up an effective routine at home. And then here's how you can contact me, and don't be afraid to have that conversation with me.
Do parents reach out to you during the week?
Yeah, they do. I get some text messages, some emails being like, hey, it says whatever, crossover, the left hand, what do you mean by that? And then I can just shoot back a text or a little video. So they do reach out, which is great.
Yeah. And I agree. I would rather have them reach out than practice it wrong. I have an adult student who will text me during the week if she has questions. And, I'm always happy to answer and send a little video or whatever, like you said.
I also think that just if you have the privilege of being able to have FaceTime with the parents after the lesson, just going over any of those points that you think might be sticky and just quickly demonstrating for the parents. Because a lot of this stuff, especially with beginner students, is pretty easy intellectually to understand just if you know what it is. So it's like, oh, when I say firm fingertips, like this is what I mean. So if you're walking by or sitting with them when they're practicing, can you keep an eye out for that? And I think just like preemptively showing them those things helps a lot as well.
Yeah. I've noticed parents have the best of intentions. I actually had a conversation this week with a parent, and her little girl is very new to piano, and she actually just bought a keyboard. And she said, I bought these stickers. Do you recommend that I put the stickers on the keys? And I was like, actually, the way I like to teach is to find the group of 2 black notes, and then you find the C, D, and E. And once I explained it to her, she totally understood it. And I actually invited her to come and sit in on the lesson so she could kind of see it in action. And I think that was so good for her, for us to have the conversation and for her to see how I teach it. Cause we just kind of assume that, the kid will tell them or they'll know or whatever, but they don't know. And they really want to help. I know this parent wanted to help. And I have so many parents like the ones you were talking about who want to help, but they have no musical background. So they're just kind of floundering and doing the best they can. So I think the more tools we can give them, the better.
Yeah, exactly. And that was very diplomatic. The sticker is like the horror, not the stickers.
I know. I've had a couple of parents ask about the stickers, and I'm like, well, actually, the way I like to do it is this. And then, they get it, And they understand that the stickers will become a crutch. I think I said that it becomes a crutch, and then it's hard for them to get away from the stickers, right?
Yeah.
All right. So we've talked quite a bit here about getting parents on board with the practicing. Although I want to ask you one more question. As far as the routine goes, how do you talk to parents about setting up a routine? Do you recommend any kind of, habit stacking, or do it at the same time every day? How do you talk to parents about the routine?
To both of those things. So yeah, I love habit stacking. Atomic Habits is like one of my favorite books. Especially, it's just so helpful. So I talk to them about finding a time consistently every day. So I feel like if you have it at the same time every day, it's more likely to stick, because it's expected. So there's less friction around that with the child because they're like, oh, it's after snack time. That's when I practice piano. So it's expected. So tying it to something they're already doing every day and then trying to figure out where in the day is a good place that they can most often have that consistent time available, which I know schedules are so crazy during the school year. Kids are involved in so many different activities and it's really hard to find that consistent time. But I do think it takes a little trial and error. And then just understanding that what you pick might not necessarily work for every season of life. So you're going to have to adjust it. It's just not a one and done thing. It takes some reassessing and playing around with.
Yeah. So let's transition a little and talk about teaching our students how to practice, because that can be a whole nother thing. They might have the routine and they might sit there for 15 minutes, but that doesn't necessarily mean they know what they're doing or that they're practicing correctly, right? So talk to me about how you teach your students how to practice.
Yeah. So I think modeling is the best thing we can do, and modeling consistently. So I will typically walk students through a mock practice session somewhere in their beginning lessons, showing them what do you do first? Because I use the Faber series, and there's a million books. No, there's 4 books that they use. And it's what do we do with all these books? I'm like, first, we're going to work on technique. And then you're going to look at your pieces. And then we break it down into smaller chunks. So I walk them through how I want it to look during the week, and then we just practice that. And then when I'm introducing new pieces to the students, I like to follow that same kind of format with them when we're introducing it. But I really just think repetition. And then I love Nicola Canton, and she has some great fun practice activities for students. And they have cute little names. I think one is Metronome Monkey or something. I don't know, like really fun, cute little things. So I like to pull those out too and show the student the technique and then be like, okay, your assignment this week is to use this with your piece. So just modeling. And then another thing too, I think is talking to the parents about before the student sits down and practice, having a discussion with their child about what are we going to accomplish with this practice session. So just having the parent help them set small goals for each piece and determine what they're actually going to work on. And again, that's something a parent can help with, even if they don't have a musical background.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think that's some advice that even us as adults could take when we sit down to practice. Like, how many times do we just sit down and play through the piece and we don't make any progress because we didn't have a goal and we didn't have a focus that we were going to do?
I think that's just human nature too, just because it's easier. You know, it takes effort, not a lot of effort, mind you, but a little effort to sit down and think, okay, what am I trying to get done here? And we try to avoid things that take extra effort. So just having someone to keep you accountable, like the parent, is really
Right. And it's rewarding to play the piece from beginning to end. And so we just like jump straight there and instead of going to the difficult parts, the parts that are going to be a challenge, you know? Speaking of rewards, do you use any practice incentives or reward systems?
Okay, so I actually don't use any practice incentives, and I don't really think they're bad. I just like to keep things simple, and I feel like it's one more thing to manage sometimes. But I do sometimes use short-term challenges. Like I did a pre-recital practice challenge just to give students a little extra boost to get prepared for the recital. But I think with like extrinsic motivation, it works for a time, but I don't really think it has staying power because it kind of loses its sparkle after a little bit. So I do like them, and I think it can be effective in short term, but not for like an all the time situation.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do your students track their practice time? Do you have a system for tracking practice?
Yes, they do. I have a simple practice tracker where they just mark off. They don't even have to list the time. It's just like, did I sit down at the piano and work? So then they can see at the end of the month how many times they sat down, and we'll set goals like how many times do you think you can practice this month? And they like trying to beat their own score. Some of them are just motivated by that, just coloring in a note, you know?
Yeah, that's really helpful. And is it part of like a practice notebook or something that they have?
Yeah, every student has a notebook that they take with them, and I'll put a new sheet in there every month along with their assignment notes and all that stuff they need.
So on your website, it says that you offer lessons that are simple for parents, which you just mentioned, the simple practice tracker. Do you have other things that make these lessons simple for parents? And how can the rest of us adopt some of those simple things?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I really think a lot, especially as a parent myself, about the mental load of parenting. There's so much that everyone's juggling. So you have work, kids, multiple activities. I have some families of 4 kids, and they all are in different activities. And it's a lot to think about. So I didn't want piano lessons to feel like just one more thing that you have to manage, because I wanted it to be something enjoyable for the kids and for the parents. So a few years ago, I took some time just to streamline everything from the parents' perspective and just put myself in their shoes of like, what would their experience be from the other side? Because I think we get so wrapped up in our own experience that we don't always consider what it looks like on the other side. So I sent out like a survey to parents. How would you like to receive practice notes? Or how is this working for you? Would this be easier if I sent a lesson reminder, or would it be just one more thing? So I took some time to really streamline that process so there's as little friction as possible with their experience with lessons. So one of the big things I did was I switched to an all-inclusive monthly tuition, which I know there's a lot of talk about monthly tuition if you're in like online piano teacher forums. And I think they're great for so many reasons because one, it's predictable for everyone. It's like they don't have to think, oh, how much do I owe the piano teacher this month? And then like there's so many emails back and forth, like how many lessons are we doing? So that's the first reason I love it. The second reason is I think it encourages more consistent attendance. Because if you're paying for it, you're going to show up. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I can't just dip. Yeah. Yeah. You don't have an easy out. And then I made mine all inclusive. So basically I buy and distribute all the materials to the students. So they don't have to think about it. So they just show up and like the student plays and they don't have to worry about it. And I also did auto pay. So one less thing for everyone to think about. And then another thing, so this isn't related to practice. So I don't, but I aligned my schedule with all the local school breaks, so they don't have to think about that. I thought about everything that the parent might need to know, and I wrote it all out for them and put it in a resource, my Parent's Guide to Piano Practice. So then when they start lessons, they have everything they need in one place. So really it was a long process. That was a little longer winded than I intended. But essentially what I did was just look at it from the parent's shoes and think like, how could I create a great customer experience for them where it's like a pleasurable thing to take them to piano lessons?
Yeah, that's so smart. And actually, I don't know if you remember this, but a couple of years ago, you shared with me your welcome packet that you give to parents. And I actually used it kind of as a template to create a welcome packet because when I saw yours, I was like, oh, there's so many things that I should be sharing with the parents. And I think I just had like a Word document or something real ugly, but yours was packaged so nicely and it had links in there and it was pretty. And so I've been using that ever since. And it's been great. It has keyboard recommendations and all kinds of things in there that is really helpful for the parents. So thank you for sharing that with me. It's been useful.
Thank you. I'm glad it was helpful.
Yeah, it totally was. Why don't you share some of the resources that you have available? Because I know that you offer things for teachers, for parents. Why don't you share about some of those things that teachers might want to look at?
Sure. Okay. So my main resource that I have is my Parent's Guide to Piano Practice, which I actually include in my studio welcome kit. And it breaks down the steps for setting up a good practice routine. So how to set up your space, how to set the schedule, what practice should look like when you get in there. So it has everything there. It has practice activities that parents can do with their kids, a cheat sheet of musical terms, a tracker. Like I tried to think of everything that you could possibly need for piano practice and just put it in one document for them. And then also I have created a set of onboarding email templates, which I also use in my studio. And it's 5 emails that you can use to onboard new students and just make sure you're providing the same information to all your new students. So like, I feel like, especially if you're starting a bunch of new students at one time, it can feel really hard to remember what you tell everyone. So I like to just have to know that I'm communicating what everyone needs to know consistently. And I think too, like those first couple months of lessons is when parents and kids are really excited and invested. So I just want to grab them while I have their attention, and hopefully it'll stick throughout their whole musical career.
Yeah. So I just want to clarify, is this a resource that piano teachers get and then share with parents, or is it a resource for parents? It's
a resource that for parents, but for teachers to give to the parents.
Gotcha. Okay. So yes, I mean, obviously most of our listeners are teachers, so they would get the resource from you and then they would share it with their studio parents. Okay. I got you. I was thinking it was for parents, and then you started talking about the email templates. I was like, wait, I think it's for teachers, and then they share. Do you have any other advice or things you want to share about practicing? Maybe favorite things in your studio? I don't know. What else do you want to share with us, Holly?
Oh my goodness. So much. I think the main thing that I really hope to hit home with my message is just that parents are our allies in our piano lessons. So a lot of times I'm on Facebook groups looking at some of the messages, and it almost seems like the conversation around parents can be negative, or like parents are obstacles to what we're trying to accomplish. But really, parents are the greatest tools that we can use in helping our kids succeed, because they know their kid better than anyone. They're with them all the time. And if we're not tapping into that resource, then we're really missing out. And also, just from a teacher's standpoint, when you build those strong relationships, it makes your job so much more enjoyable. Like, I can honestly say I love all my studio families. I love catching up with them. Like, it's really just a joy to work with them. And I think that comes from investing in that relationship and just taking the time to build that.
Yeah. Oh, that's such good advice, Holly. Thank you. I think that is so true, that we need the parents on our side. And it can't just be, like you said, a two-part relationship, you and the student. It has to include the parent. So it's a three-pronged relationship, right?
A little triangle.
Yes, a triangle. Yeah, so that's really good. Could you tell listeners where they can find the resources that you have available and where they can find you if they want to learn more?
Yeah, sure. If you can find me on Instagram, that's where I hang out the most, at Clever Keys Music Lessons. And I share practice tips and parent communication tips there. And then if you want to check out my resources, you can go to cleverkeysmusiclessons.com.
Great. Thank you so much, Holly. This was really valuable, I think, and just to get teachers thinking about some of these ideas of how to get parents more on board and bring them in the loop. So it was helpful for me, and I know it was helpful for listeners as well. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I hope that you enjoyed my chat with Holly. If you do enjoy the podcast and find yourself getting value from the episodes each week, I would love it if you would leave a quick review on whatever podcast platform you listen on. You might not think much about it, but it does help other teachers find the podcast when you rate and review it. I appreciate it so much. Next week on the podcast, I have another guest who will be talking about practicing from a different angle. So tune in next week to hear my interview with New Zealand piano teacher Bridie Gibson. I'm Rachel Arian, and you've been listening to the Top Music Piano Podcast. I will see you right back here next week.
How do you keep up to date with all the latest trends and research into music education? How do you connect with other teachers around the world and make sure your teaching stays fresh and relevant for students of all ages and stages, both now and into the future? I created our Top Music Pro membership to be the one-stop shop for music teaching resources, training, support and community, and I'd love for you to come and join us inside. With over 40 comprehensive training courses, hundreds of teaching demonstrations and lesson plans, free monthly sheet music, discounts, and all the business and pedagogy support you could ever need, Top Music Pro is the community you've been looking for. If you're ready to level up your learning from the podcast and join thousands of other teachers in our global network, head over to topmusicpro.com today.